Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are doing a consultant's deep dive into two absolutely critical metrics, PSAP and PPK. Now, these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They answer a fundamental question. Is your process actually designed for success, or is it secretly set up to fail? Let's jump in. Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the big picture question, then get into what PPK and PPK really tell us. We'll look at how to actually read the numbers, and then I'm going to leave you with the one golden rule that you absolutely cannot ignore if you want any of this to matter.
Okay, let's get right to it. Everything we talk about in quality, in operations, in customer satisfaction, it all boils down to one simple, powerful question that every single leader needs to be asking.
And this isn't just a question for the factory floor, right? This is a core business strategy question. Are we built to deliver what we promised our customers? The answer, it turns out, is found in this constant tension, this tug-of-war between two opposing forces.
So on one hand, you've got the voice of the client. This is what they demand. It's non-negotiable and is defined by their specification limits. The goalposts you absolutely have to stay within. But on the other hand, you've got the voice of the process. This is reality. It's what your system actually produces, with all of its natural built-in variation. And believe me, the entire game of process excellence is won or lost right here, in managing the gap between these two voices.
So let's start with our first key metric, PP. This one looks at the pure, raw, theoretical potential of your process. For just a minute, we're going to ignore all the real-world messiness and just ask a very simple question.
And to make this super clear, let's use an analogy I love. Think of your client's requirements, those specification limits, as a garage, and think of your process output, with all its variability, as the car you need to fit inside that garage. So the very first question we have to ask is the car even going to fit?
And that's exactly what process performance, or PP, measures. It's all about pure potential. It completely ignores where the car is parked for a moment and just asks one thing. Is this car physically small enough to fit inside this garage? Period.
In a perfect world, your process variation is really tight. It's much narrower than what the customer requires. This is like trying to park a Mini Cooper in a 3-car garage. You have tons of room on either side. You're set up for success.
But in a bad scenario, your process has way too much variation. It's all over the place. This is like trying to shove a giant SUV into a parking spot marked compact only. It doesn't matter how skilled a driver you are, it's just not going to fit. You are guaranteed to produce defects.
Now the formula here looks a little technical, but it's actually dead simple. The top part is just the width of the garage, the distance between your upper and lower limits, and the bottom part is the width of the car, which we defined as 6 standard deviations. So it's literally just garage width divided by car width. That's it.
Okay, so we have the math. But what number are we actually shooting for? What does a good PMP even look like? What's the target?
The gold standard, the Six Sigma world-class level, is a PPOP of 2.0. Think about what that means. It means your car is only half the width of the garage. You have a massive buffer on either side. A process like that is practically bulletproof against defects, which means less waste, happier clients, and a much healthier bottom line. All right, so knowing the car can fit is great, but it's only half the story. Now we have to talk about the skill of the driver. This is where we move from theory into reality, from potential performance to actual performance.
And this is where the Process Performance Index, or PPK, comes in. It answers the million-dollar question. Okay, your car is small enough, but did you actually park it in the middle of the garage, or did you slam it up against one of the walls? It measures location.
And this is just so important. An uncentered process is a risky process. You could have that tiny little Mini Cooper, but if you park it with 1 inch of clearance from the wall, any tiny little nudge, a gust of wind, a slight tremor, it's going to cause a scratch. And in your business, a scratch is a defect. It's waste. It's a customer complaint waiting to happen.
So here's the really clever thing about the PPK calculation. It's designed to be a pessimist. What we do is, we calculate the distance from our process average to the high end, and we calculate the distance to the low end. And then we take whichever one is worse. PPK always reports your worst-case scenario, because that's the side that's going to bite you.
So now that we've got these two metrics, PC and PPK, how do we actually use them? Let's talk about what the numbers mean in the real world and what you should do about them.
Think of this table as your quick reference guide.
Generally speaking, a value of 1.33 is what most industries consider acceptable for an existing process. Now, if you're launching a brand new or a really critical process, you want to aim a little higher, maybe 1.67. But that North Star, the target for any world-class organization, is always that Six Sigma goal of 2.0 or better.
And here's a great little consultant's trick for you. There's a direct link between PPK and Z-score. All you have to do is divide your Z-score by 3. So a PPK of 1 means your closest limit is 3 standard deviations away. A PPK of 2 means it's 6 standard deviations away. It's a really fast way to connect these numbers to statistical risk.
All right, enough theory. The absolute best way to get a feel for this is to actually run the numbers. So let's walk through a couple of classic examples, just like you'd see in the real world.
Okay, problem 1. This one is all about potential. We've got our process variation, we've got the client specs. The only question is the car small enough for the garage?
So let's just walk through it. Step 1, what's our garage width? The spec is 96 plus or minus 4, which gives us limits of 92 and 100. The total space is 8 units. Easy enough? Now the car. The variance is 4, so the standard deviation is the square root of that, which is 2. We multiply that by 6 to get our car width, which is 12. So now we just divide. Garage width of 8 divided by car width of 12, and we get a PEEP of 0.667. Since that's less than 1, the diagnosis is crystal clear. Our car is literally wider than the garage. It's impossible to succeed. The only way to fix this is to fundamentally improve the process to make it less variable.
Okay, on to a more interesting problem. This time we know where the process is centered. We know its average, so now we're not just looking at potential, we have to calculate the actual performance, the PPK.
So remember, we have to check both sides. On the upper end, we're at 50. The limit is 72, so we have 22 units of space. We divide that by 3 standard deviations, which is 15, and we get an upper performance of 1.467. Hey, that's not bad at all. But on the lower end, we're at 50, the limit is 36, so we only have 14 units of space. Divide that by 15, and our lower performance is just 0.933.
And since we always take the worst of the two, our final PPK is 0.933. And just look at the insight this gives us. The problem here isn't that our process has too much variation. The problem is that it's running off-center, way too close to that lower spec limit. The action plan is obvious. We need to shift the average of the process higher.
Okay, to wrap things up, let's talk about the single most important rule in this entire discussion. Honestly, this is the one idea that separates the real pros from the amateurs. Because if you forget this, all those calculations we just did are basically worthless.
This quote says it all. You can get a great PPK score, you can celebrate it, you can put it in a report, but if your underlying process is unstable and unpredictable, that number is a complete illusion. It was just a lucky snapshot in time, not a reliable measure of performance.
Here's the best way to think about it. Capability, your PP and PPK, is a snapshot. It tells you how you were doing in one specific moment. But stability, which you measure using things like control charts, that's video. It tells you if your process is predictable over time. And you must have stability before you can even begin to talk about capability. It is the non-negotiable prerequisite. An unstable process, no matter how good its PPK looks today, is a ticking time bomb.
So I'll leave you with that one final question. Don't just ask if your process is capable of hitting its targets. Ask yourself, is it stable enough to be trusted? Because in the world of high-performance operations, consistency isn't just important, it's everything. And that's the true mark of a world-class process.